TED Talk: How I Taught Myself to Be More Courageous. I realized that courage is not a state of being, it is a way of doing. It was in the act of doing something brave that I became brave, and it changes me in a way I could never have anticipated. Firstly, my cognitive ability actually improved and became more accurate. I was able to perceive that while homophobia is very real, it is not everywhere. Secondly, I was less affected by those people who actually are homophobic. It wasn't that became recklessly indifferent, more likely isolate. It was more like isolate developed immunity, and the virus of homophobia loses power to corrupt my operating system. Thirdly, my desire and ability to fight for what is right grew stronger. Some people suggest this in light of my family, but it was in my blood, giving me kind of genetic edge like Michael Phelps' enormous arm span. More and more studies are confirming the existence of intergenerational trauma. Is there, I wondered, such a thing as intergenerational courage? Well, recently I had my DNA tested, and it turns out there is a gene nicknamed the warrior gene. I don't have it. In fact, what I do have is called the warrior gene. This apparently means that I good at multitasking but prone to psychosocial anxiety. Tell me something I don't know. Now, have I actually been paying attention during any of my philosophy degree? I would know. Our education was free, you know. But look at me using it now. I would have known that Aristotle had in fact answered my question 2,500 years ago. He believed that virtues are not qualities that we are born with, but habits that we are acquired, and that we learn them by doing them, quote, just as men become builders by building and lyre player by playing the lyre. Had I known that, perhaps I would treat myself more kindly. Instead of calling myself a coward, perhaps I might have thought that courage was, in part, just a skill I had not yet learned. In August of 2017, after 40 years and 22 bills, the chronically deadlocked Australian Parliament decided to put same-sex marriage to popular vote. Very quickly, the arguments became vicious and bitterly divisive. The government opted to take a hands-off approach, and in the moral vacuum created by this total absence of political leadership, my long-standing fame led to me becoming a kind of public, unofficial face of the Yes campaign. Despite looking like Fanny was actually a very daunting responsibility, It would be terrible if we lost, not just in Australia. A victory for no side might also bolster discrimination in countries where LGBTQI people are persecuted and killed. But even if we won, would the gain be worth the cost of dragging the LGBTQI community through a very damaging, ugly debate? One more. I'm good at multitasking but prone to psychosocial anxiety. Tell me something I don't know. Have I actually been paying attention during any of my philosophy degree? I wouldn't known. Our education was free, you know. But look at me using it now. I wouldn't know that Aristotle had in fact answered my question 2,500 years ago. He believed that virtues are not qualities that we are born with, but habits that we are acquired, and that we learn them by doing them. Quote, just as men become builders by building, and lyre player by playing the lyre. Had I known that, perhaps I would treat myself more kindly. Instead of calling myself a coward, perhaps I might have thought that courage was, in part, just a skill I had not yet learned. In August of 2017, after 14 years and 22 bills, the chronically deadlocked Australian Parliament decided to put same-sex marriage to popular vote. Very quickly, the argument became vicious and bitterly divisive. The government opted to take a hands-off approach, and in the moral vacuum created by this total absence of political leadership, my long-standing fame led to me become a kind of public, unofficial face of the Yes campaign. Despite looking like Fanny was actually a very daunting responsibility. It would be terrible if we lost, not just in Australia. A victory for the no side might also bolster discrimination in countries where LGBTQI people are persecuted and killed. But even if we won, would the gains be worth the cost of dragging that LGBTQI community through a very damaging, ugly debate? Civil rights struggles are long and hard and never fully won. And over the course of their journey, they require many types of courage at different stages. Sometimes fearless individuals are needed to pave the way, but at other times what I needed are the gentle arts of conciliation and unification. I don't regret my fear. It taught me humility, patience, and compassion for suffering, and perhaps that was just the right kind of courage that was needed for that moment. I knew I was gay when I was 5 years old. That was 1966. Terrified and alone, I saw my fear, and I called myself a coward. 52 years later, I would never ever claim to have the courage of my ancestor. But with persistence, willingness, and a shift of understanding, I was able to increase the small amounts I did have to become one of the most effective campaigners for LGBTQI rights in this country. Courage may be crucial to our survival, but it is powerful magic, and it serves us best when it is placed in a constellation of other virtues. Without kindness and common sense, it can be cruel and reckless. So, if you are to be brave, perhaps our first brave act should be to look with intelligence and compassion at our cowardice. And just a quick postscript. I misjudged my father. After he died, I came across a quote he had written in Latin: Neque curi, contra pluri. It's an old policy proven enemy. Even Hercules is afraid when confronted with many enemies, because, as it turns out, my father did have the warrior gene either. Thank you.